This week on the TT Show, we take a look at Samsung's impressive new QLED and OLED TV lineup. Frame generation is coming to Xbox and PlayStation. Razer's new flagship 4K gaming laptop. Next-gen Xbox goes all in on gaming AI. NVIDIA partners confirm RTX 5080 and 5090 for holiday 2024. SpaceX reveals its deadly plan for Mars mission. Next Starship launch, and Apple's new AI gives Siri vision. Let's get into it. Welcome back to the TT Show. My name is Jack Connor. I'm a hardware editor over at Tweaktown, and today I'm joined by my co-host,
Kosta Andriadis, gaming hardware editor at Tweaktown.
Hello, my fellow Samsung friend.
Hello. Yeah, I know. If you're watching us on YouTube, you'll know that we're in different locations, but yesterday, Jack from Adelaide and Kosta from Melbourne met at Samsung in Sydney.
It was a grand meeting.
To look at their new TV lineup.
Which was very cool.
Fancy inner city venue.
No, it was good. Well, we haven't seen each other in person since Computex last year. So the meeting was a big hug, which was very, very nice. I can see you on the thing, but I can't touch your pretty face. No, Samsung's, before we get into like the nitty gritty of it, what did you think of the event overall?
Oh, it was cool. So basically, Samsung's new lineup of TVs, they release, annual upgrades and et cetera, et cetera. So they basically took over a space in the city of Sydney and created basically like, I don't know what you call them, like an experience or whatever, where you walk through and there's obviously bunches of TVs everywhere, but like you got a makeshift, like a lounge room set up to look like, hey, this is where a typical Australian family or group would watch sport. And then here's one for, here's like a music room. Here's like a gaming sort of setup. Here's a cinema sort of room. And then each one had like the QLEDs and OLEDs and big screen TVs, as small as 55-inch, which is now like tiny apparently in 2024. Yeah,
what did Samsung say that big is, like, in quotation mark, a big TV is classified as? Wasn't it 77-inch and above?
It's 77-inch and above is now a big screen TV. But people have to realize that Australia is a little bit different than most places in the world, even though like most of our cities are pretty much all on the coast and 90% of the country is uninhabited. Yeah. In terms of the population or whatever. But in most areas, like most suburban areas, like traditionally houses are pretty big, right? Lounge rooms are pretty big. So Australia adopts big screen TVs, or has adopted traditionally more so than in other regions. For example, like if you go to an Asian country, like, Computex, if you look at Taipei City, people are in apartments, in skyscrapers, apartment buildings. Like you're not going to find a lot of space for like, a lot of people, they don't have a lot of space for a 77-inch TV. Yeah. But like in Australia, there's a lot of like, just houses with big lounge rooms and stuff like that. Yeah. And so Samsung said that basically, so if 77 inches now a big screen TV, but 98 inches, which is like the biggest one that they had on display, like that whole sector of like big screen 77 and above is the fastest growing in Australia. At least, or globally, I'm not too sure. Yeah,
that the overall experience, they put a lot of work into. They outlined it in zones, which I kind of liked. It was a bit sweaty in there. It was quite hot.
It was warm in there. Yeah,
it was very warm. I didn't think they really.
The venue. That's not Samsung's fault. They didn't turn up the heaters to make us sweat.
Yeah, Maybe they're trying to make the press. They'll make them feel uncomfortable.
Yeah, for some reason, even though it's like supposed to be like there were couches and stuff there to make them. Like
the hosting was good. The hosting was very nice. Very nice people as well. We got to talk to a lot of interesting. I'm not sure if any engineers were there, but like the head of communications and
comms people, product people. But pretty much. I mean, they prepared their speeches and presentations, and obviously, like this sort of event is happening in markets where Samsung is huge. So I'm sure there was like one in the US recently, or one in
Yeah.
Europe at the same time, another one in Asia and stuff like that, because they're just rolling out their new lineup now.
Yeah. So let's get into the new lineup. You want to start off with the Neo QLED 8K?
Yeah, so the flagship, obviously,
It's
is
probably the
8K.
most impressive one there, would you say?
Yeah.
And we walked in thinking the OLED matte was probably going to be like the highlight of it, but I was really impressed by the 8K quality.
Yeah, they had it in the let's have a look. What's the Neo QLED 8K? They had it in the 85-inch, which is the biggest for the QLED 8K, and it looked really, really good.
It did.
It wasn't the case of, I mean, because at 85 inches for 4K, I mean, when you're getting to that sort of size, pixels are spread out a bit, but it's still like, you know, if you've got your distance of like about 3 meters or 3 meters when you're sitting from it, it's still like super crisp for that sort of resolution. But so they had like a 4K. It was mainly sport, because sport is obviously fast moving, a lot of intricate detail. You know, you got players to keep track of, and so they had like soccer, like some sort of like soccer 4K footage running on loop, but it was using the so they were really showcasing the AI side of it, which was upscaling it, being able to upscale content. Yeah,
so the Neo QLED 8K runs the most recent version of Samsung's NPU. So that is called, what and Samsung are calling it, is the NQ8 AI Gen 3 processor. Yeah. And Samsung says it is a significant leap in AI TV technology. I haven't seen the Gen 2. Wait, did we have a look at the Gen 2?
So basically,
that was on the, was that on the 70?
Everything else. Everything else is running the Gen 2 processor, which I asked about, because, you know, like they were talking about, because the Gen 3, like, I mean, like AI, even they made a joke, was like, you know, you've obviously, like, you know, we're here to hear that our TVs have got AI, and, you know, everything's got AI now, but it's like an actual chip. And, you know, Samsung has a foundry in Korea. They make chips, right? Like, they've signed with all the major companies, NVIDIA, et cetera, et cetera. They make this sort of hardware. So then having their own NPUs is no big surprise. Or the fact that it's actually impressive. Yeah, so they rattled off that it's like, you know, exponentially more neural whatever processing power, et cetera, et cetera. It can do this, it can do that. And they've obviously developed technology specific for, they said, not just upscaling, but also audio. So there's like voice modes that are going to be, that will pair with their sound bars, that, like, you know, like this is something that has been around in sort of like chip form in other instances. But basically, you know, when you're watching TV and the voices are always too soft, compared to everything else. Yeah, and you're sitting there and you're like, oh, I can't hear it, and you turn up the TV, and then like a bomb goes off in the background of the content, and you're like, boof, blown away. You're like, oh my god, turn it down. Or they walk into like a nightclub or a strip club or something in an action movie, and you're like turning it down because it's just too loud. Yeah, so they use AI to be able to detect when characters are speaking, to make sure that that's always clear and audible. So that feature is called, I just want to get the name for it so we get all the terminology right. Where is it here? AI, oh boy. No, I didn't write the name in it. Wait, give me a sec here. Go on. Yeah, so what I was saying, like, if you look at like voice amplifier. Yeah, like this sort of stuff is worth its weight in gold, right? So like if you, because like I've been into like home theaters for ages, and after the event I was telling you that, like, you know, instead of buying a car when I was, you know, of driving age, I bought like, you know, amp and speakers and, you know, home theater setup instead. But like when you look at like home theaters, you know, there's all these different brands, and you know, they're obviously expensive because this is like serious home theater setup, right? So you got to have amplifiers, you got to have multiple speakers. So it's like if you're trying to create like a home cinema, basically, which is different to the modern sort of like flat screen and sound bar and minimal sort of setup. But like there is this chip called an Odyssey chip, where like if you're like even like a Sony, Denon, Onkyo, Marantz, or like that these really good audio companies that make really good audio amplifiers. For them to put that chip in their amplifier, they obviously need to pay. But that chip is like a dedicated chip, and what it does is it regulates audio. It has its own like equalizer thing where it basically
detects lows, detects
like
mid
it takes everything
range
to make sure like if there's like an explosion, it all happens like like a millisecond before. Like it makes sure that whenever there's an explosion, it's never too loud. Whenever there's characters speaking, they're always. But this is like a dedicated chip that is expensive. Like just that chip alone, would cost them hundreds just to put it in the amp or whatever it was. But like I bought an amp with that because I had it demoed. I'm like, that seems pretty cool. And then going to like a friend's place who bought like a home theater system, like just as expensive or whatever, but his amp didn't have that chip. And it was it's like night and day. So like Samsung, like when you hear about like these sort of like technologies of like being able to regulate volume, being able to do it through AI instead of having like a dedicated chip that was built just to do that, like a audio processor chip just for that, for example, like which that chip would be bigger than the microprocessor in these Samsung TVs. But the thing is that like that sort of technology, like once you experience it, it's like you can't go back. So being able to like regulate audio like that is like a big step in creating like a really good home watching or home like media experience, because then like if you're playing a game, like you said, like an explosion, whatever, like it's not like it just keeps everything in check, and you're like, oh, this is perfect. Like
that's good. We didn't get demoed that.
We didn't get demoed
that, but that is really interesting. And now that you've given a bit more background on it, I wish we did. Because
if it works basically how I explained, like how it worked in basically in amps and those dedicated, if it works like that, then like you would say, look, hey, like if you if I was working on a showroom, I'd say like you might want to consider getting this TV because it has this feature, even though it's like same specs as this other one, similar price, but you go like that's enough to make you go, yeah, I should get that. And people that experience it, like, this will be like one of those things, where somebody will come over to somebody's house that has this TV, and if it does exactly what it does, they'll be like, oh, is that like your sound bar or whatever, or like how do you get the audio like that good? And people will buy it based on experiencing it.
Yeah, it keeps it balanced. We should get into a bit of because a big part of the presentation was the AI upscaling.
Yes.
So what we saw on the Neo QLED 8K was, you touched on it just earlier, the sports and soccer content, and we asked the Samsung rep what content is, like what resolution is the content being played on loop here.
Yeah, because
there's obviously big problems when it comes to what content you're watching. Like if you're watching a 720p thing and then it gets upscaled to 8K, there could be some degradation in terms of quality.
There would be, like, regardless. Like there's no, doesn't matter how good it is. Like even DLSS, like the lower you go,
the worse off
off you're going to be. But the trick is to be able to get it
passable,
close enough. Like based on what we were told, I think because we saw 4K to 8K.
Yes.
But even though you're thinking like, oh, that's easy to upscale, it wasn't the fact that it upscaled. It's just there was enough information in the 4K stream for it to work out exactly how that should look. Or not exactly, or close enough how that would look natively 8K. So you could see like the finer grass detail in the
soccer
pitch, on the field, the ball, the player, the heads, etc., etc. And then they showed a similar one, I think, for when it was like in the cinema room, where you could see like the strands in the hair of the actress and stuff like that. So that's them taking 4K and showing you that yes, you can take 4K and make it look 8K, which is good for 8K TVs because there's not a lot of native 8K. So like you'd be thinking like, oh, why would I care if you're just going to be showing me 4K content on 8K? It's like, no, it's to show you that like this AI can actually upscale it. It's like, you know, playing Cyberpunk in 4K with RT overdrive, whatever, on a 4090 with frame gen DLSS, and it's upscaling from 1080p, but it looks better than playing at 1080p. You know what I mean? Like it's still 4K, even though it's using upscaling. So it's a similar sort of scenario.
Yeah, another cool AI feature I thought was the AI Motion Enhancer Pro. And this is what you were talking about with the soccer ball itself. Samsung was saying that its AI tech is able to detect when a sports game is on, where the ball is in the image, and track it and make sure to keep the ball itself at a higher visual fidelity than the rest of the screen. Obviously, it is trying to make the entire image look better, but this tech is specific for sports-related content or sports content itself. I think that's great. I don't know how it's going to go. It's something that I wrote in my article. On these 8K TVs, and obviously we're in Australia, so AFL is a massive... It's probably the most consumed sports content here. If you're watching that on free to air, most of those streams are in 720p. How do you think this is going to go? Like with this AI tech in play on a 720p stream video content on a like 85-inch or 88-inch 8K TV.
Obviously not as good as using native 4K.
Of course, yeah.
But outside of that, I mean, I want to see how it does it. But based on what they said that they've actually it's been tested with 720p normal sports broadcasts in Australia. So like in other countries, there are things broadcast at 1080p for sport, but like we're talking about like over the airways. So like not streaming online, not like Netflix.
Yeah, free to air.
Yeah, so not like KO is like a sports app here. So not like a streaming app, but like over free to air, like, you know, using traditional aerials. Our free to air HD TV is 720p or 1080i interlaced, which is pretty low resolution now. When you factor in, so it doesn't look very good on a 4K TV anyway. If there's nothing being done to the image. Like you're just losing so much detail. So obviously having like a DLSS or like this sort of like a neural network, generative AI, upscaling designed specifically for sport, it would have to make it look better. It would. I really am interested in seeing some free to air content, sports content on there. I think they also said like for racing, it like tracks the cars or something like that. Like it's quite dynamic in what it can do. Yeah. It's like, I think it will like be generally like a similar thing, right? It'll be able to, like the AI will be trained on moving, like fast moving objects. So, and it'll be like, okay, so it'll be able to know what a ball is or what players running around on a basketball court are. You know, like, and if it's racing, it'll be cars like that. That's not gonna, I think that's all pretty standard for generative AI.
Yeah.
But like
it's what you would expect.
Yeah.
Another AI feature is the Real Depth Enhancer Pro. I don't think we got a side-by-side comparison between that feature on and it being off, but according to Samsung, it is meant to pull people into the scene. I'm guessing this has something to do with the contrast of just whatever the video content is. I don't think we had much of an explanation on this one in particular, but
I'll be interested to know what it is. Like if it's making like, if it can take like a foreground and background object and keep them both in focus, or increase the sharpness of like background objects to create like more depth. Then if that's what it's doing, then that'll be interesting. But at the same time, it's all dependent on the source material and like why would you want that if that wasn't the intended effect?
Yeah, for a movie.
With, you know what I mean? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that would be bizarre if like the tech was messing with the artistic intention of a director in a movie, let's say, like where they are keeping the focus in the foreground on a character, but then the AI is like making cups and stuff on like a kitchen table just really clear. Yeah. The director would be like, don't watch the movie on this TV. It's ruining it. What else do we have here? Another AI feature. I think Adaptive Sound Pro. I think you kind of touched on that with the sound bars.
Yeah, and there was another one for like the adjusting the audio to the room acoustics. Now, I'm not too sure how that works without a microphone, but if it's similar to how those sort of tools work, it's pretty standard. It's like there's a way to be able to there's a way to use a microphone to be able to adjust, like the way you calibrate speakers professionally. Like if you were to set up like 5.1, 7.19, like discrete, like Dolby Atmos or whatever, like with individual speakers.
Yeah.
Installed around a room. The way you calibrate all of those is like professionally is like with a microphone to be able to record like the acoustics of each and then dynamically adjust how much volume or how the frequency works on each speaker. Like that's how you do it. But there's like automatic algorithms to do that and have existed for ages. So I'm assuming Samsung's just doing like an AI version of where it can just ping the room somehow. And like I don't know, like how do you either you put in dimensions of your room and then it adjusts based on that specifically?
I imagine, and I don't know. Yeah, maybe I imagine, and this is
adaptive,
a complete
so it adjusts on the fly is the way it's described.
Yeah,
really interesting.
I imagine the sound bar projecting sound, bouncing it off all of the corners of the room, and then somehow, and it would of course need a microphone of some kind, essentially eating all those sounds back into it, and then knowing how far away objects are or how far away those walls are. Is that how?
Like maybe there's a way for it to figure out the room, and then once it knows the room, to dynamically adjust the incoming audio to best suit the room, which is probably what I'm assuming.
Yeah,
that's how it's working. Because then it only needs to do that once to know the room, and then it can say whatever music you feed in will be like, oh, well, this music, I know what the spectrograph is. I know what the audio, the waveform or whatever it is. I know how much bass, mids, highs, all that's happening in the audio, so I can adjust it automatically.
Yeah, I really do want to get my hands on one of these sound bars, but just to test it out. It would be really cool to put it to its paces and moving it from room to room, and then trying to discern the difference in sound, or seeing how far it can adapt, etc., etc. Maybe you just need to take a photo of your floor plan for the smart hub. The Samsung smart hub. Do you remember that?
Acoustics, yeah. Like, you see, I'm always worried about audio, only because of the audiophile stuff that I'm into. But like, it's always like there's so many things that get factored into it, right? Like, there's no way to make a room that's like 80% windows and just polished wood floors sound amazing, because you just got too many reflective surfaces. Yeah. And like if like anything that reflects light like super easily is going to reflect audio in the same fashion. So if you're in like a bright windowed room, and then you got speakers, that audio is just like, like people that spend money on people that spend money on a really good, like back in the day, really good stereos for their car, like put subwoofers and a bunch of speakers and shit in there. Like that is like the car is basically the worst space ever designed for audio. Like it's going to sound okay, right? Like, don't get me wrong, but like the amount of metal and glass and
just hard surfaces.
It's just forget it.
The sound is bouncing around.
Like,
ding,
there's
ding,
no
ding,
amount
ding,
of
ding.
AI is going to make it sound amazing, right? Like like the actual, like a lot of it just still depends on the room.
we should move on to a bit of gaming. So AI has put in AI. I was just talking about AI so much. Samsung has put in AI auto game mode. This is a bit of an interesting feature. Apparently, the TV is able to automatically detect when a game is played, and I think it dynamically changes its refresh rate from, I don't know what the standard is, but it goes up to 240 hertz.
Yeah, I can't remember. Like, I'm gonna bring up the specs.
I'm pretty sure that's the case. 240 hertz on the Neo QLED 900D, the 8K one. I'm certain that was the case, or maybe that's the 4K.
Yeah, that's
one.
right. It's up to 240 hertz with VRR.
Yeah. Okay. Variable refresh rate.
But that's 4K.
At 4K.
Yeah.
Not
Which
at 8K.
is understandable because
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Because if you're doing that at 8K, like HDMI 2.1 doesn't have enough bandwidth for that. So yeah, I mean, and yeah, but the gaming stuff will be interesting to see because the game mode stuff, like, and they have like a game bar to be able to optimize settings, and like the game, they've upgraded it so you can basically, it's almost like a PC where you can see the resolution, the frame rates, and etc. And they've got like game enhancement modes, but usually like the OLEDs are better because of the lower response times and the additional latency that post-processing adds on non-OLED displays. So there's no mention of like, you know, if there's latency or whatever. And usually it's not too bad, but like you just can't compare to near instantaneous instant response time to noticeable lag if you add all like post-processing features and other things to an image.
Yeah. No, I completely agree. Should we talk about what that what was it?
The OLEDs.
I mean, I was going to. I think they were OLEDs that they were playing Sea of Thieves on. Because that was rough.
But that was through Xbox Game Pass over the cloud. So,
over the cloud.
And obviously, this was like, you know, like a space that's, you know, like almost like a art gallery sort of setup. So I don't know how good the connection was. I don't think it was that great.
Yeah, I don't think it was.
The Wi-Fi was connected to, so it was like running at, I think, lower than 720p, probably like 540p or something like that.
Yeah.
So,
it was.
So it's basically just like watching a YouTube video of the game. You know what I mean? Like a not a high quality YouTube video, just a standard 720p YouTube video of gameplay, which just dies. You know, with just the amount of compression that happens.
Yeah, it was not good. It wasn't good at all. But yeah, okay, let's talk about the OLEDs.
But the OLEDs are awesome. So I think like the 8K TVs were as impressive as they are. Like I think if you were looking straight for like something for gaming, I would stick with the OLEDs, because the OLEDs have basically for the first time like a matte finish, non-reflective surface. So they call it glare-free. Which, if you know, most TVs have a reflective surface, so like LG OLEDs, Samsung QLEDs, where it's basically, you know, they're almost like a mirror-like finish on them. And what that does is that actually improves the color vibrancy, and it keeps certain like blacks and and the contrast, like it actually just affects how the image looks. And at face value, like a glossy reflective display does have more of like an initial wow factor, but like the matte finish, a lot of people, well, there is like a large group of people prefer, because it's anti-reflective. So if you're in a bright room, you're not watching the TV and seeing yourself in the reflection.
Yeah,
which can happen.
Sucks. That sucks.
So they brought it to their OLEDs for 2024, and they had basically the same two of the same TVs, one with a gloss finish, or the last year's model, OLED, and one with the matte reflective finish. And like before they showed it, they said that like the color accuracy is the same, the brightness is the same, and it's Pantone certified in terms of like the Pantone stuff is basically you actually have to submit your TV or display for them to test. So like it's actually a test of the display. It's not just like, hey, you can reach this peak brightness, so you get your like your VESA HDR 400 certification or whatever it is, or you meet certain specs, or like you can hit 120% of the sRGB. You just have to like prove that you have the specs for it, and like there's no.
It's an independent test.
Yeah, so then they just had like the two displays, and like if you're sitting at viewing distance, that you can tell the matte from the glossy because of it's less reflective, and because we were in an indoor space, they actually had a separate Samsung display next to it with like a fake window. That
window was funny. I mean, it achieved what they were trying to demonstrate, but it was funny that they had it.
You're not going to see, like you're not going to see the reflection from that. I mean, matte, you see kind of like a, the light just kind of like spreads. Like if you shine a light on it, like you're not going to see like a pure reflection, like a mirrored finish.
Yeah, it dissipates much more effectively. It is really good. That was that was really
good.
Black
levels was still impressive. The color was still pretty much on par. Like you couldn't tell them apart really. So if you're after like a matte finish, I would keep an eye on it. I would like even be tempted to swap out like a glossy OLED for that, because I mean, like personally, I prefer to be able to control the light where the TV is, like in a lounge room specifically, or where you game, whether that's like just having curtains or whatever. Like just being able to control the light allows you to control that sort of stuff, like the reflections on the display and stuff like that. But if you're in like a super bright room, then this is a better option, because then like if you're watching like during midday, it's not going to be as painful as like having everything in the room reflected off your TV.
Yeah. No, I completely agree. And I think on one of the important points, at least for people in Australia, a lot of our homes have a lot of open living areas where there is a lot of light coming in. And there is also the factor that people like to sit outside here. Like the Australian weather is a big thing for us. We love sitting outside, watching the game. Having I would never take an OLED outside purely because it's so pretty. But if you did and you had the money to, I think the matte finish would be a lot better for you to go outside with, because a glossy TV out there would be rough with how much light that we have. I think
but I think these are more like suited for gaming as well, because you've got they're now 144 hertz, which is a more 4K 144 hertz, which is a more friendly PC resolution.
Yeah, definitely.
Refresh rate. So like the consoles are go up to 4K 120, but now you got 4K 144 with VRR. So you could connect like a gaming PC to it quite easily. So you could even look at like one of the smaller ones, like quote unquote small of 55 inches, whatever the case is, and using that as like a PC monitor, so to speak. Like which people have done with OLEDs for like ages, right? But it being like matte would actually be more like a traditional PC display, because PC displays traditionally aren't glossy because of that reason of if you
light sources and reflections,
if everything's like reflected, and because there's a lot of reading, right? And if you just got if what's behind you or you are reflected in the display and you can just see it and you're trying to read through that, it's just annoying. So like
and you go like
reflective finish,
you just raise your arm like that, like I'm just doing a wave over my head and you can see your arm in the reflection moving. That kind of sucks.
And like traditionally, like they're not as bright, the colors, like the perception is like they're not going to be as vibrant, the colors not going to be as bright, so you're going to lose out on some of that wow. but it's not really the case. Like when you see like what the difference is, it's like it's not really, it's not even noticeable because the colors look basically the same.
Yeah. What else did we see? What else did we want to get into? I think that is that it?
Yeah, when we can talk about their the music frame, because I've got a news piece on that. So we saw these like weird. Oh, so Samsung have introduced like this is not a TV. It's a new product. It's called the music frame, and it's basically an extension of a soundbar, really. But it's like, how do you make a soundbar stylish? So it's based off their frame TVs, like which are supposed to be like, you know, it's basically like hanging a piece of art. So it's like a TV. So it's basically got a painting frame.
Yeah, some kind of print inside of it, and you're able to swap out what print that you want in there. But when you move to the back, what was that? Sorry.
When we first saw it, we thought that these were actually like had displays on them, but it's not a display. So it's basically a speaker that you hang on the wall that looks like a picture frame. And on the back, you've got like 2 woofers, and you've got a bunch of speakers, tweeters, like as you would with any sort of soundbar, right? But when they're projected onto the, like it's actually pretty smart design, because having subwoofers like blast into a wall amplifies the bass.
Yeah.
Anyway, so they had like basically like a wall with like 5 of them, and with 5 of them all synced up via Bluetooth or Wi-Fi, and you can control the volume of them individually. And it's actually impressive when you have more than one. It kind of felt like you needed more than one.
Yeah.
To get like a proper stereo or like a really good sound response. But when they had like a bunch of them playing, it was actually pretty impressive.
Yeah.
But not cheap.
Do you want to say the price?
If you want to set up like 3 or 4 of them on a wall, but also, you know, I mean, the plus is that it is a kind of a cool minimal. It's basically an artsy. Like if you got a minimal art space, or like, you know, where you just got like picture frames and like you don't want it to look like if there's any tech in the room.
Yeah.
Then it's a great way to, you know, it's a stylish, modern, sleek way to have like speakers.
However, it is 750 Australian dollars, 495 US dollars.
For one. Yeah.
For
so you need to buy at least 2.
Yeah. If you wanted, say you wanted
I would get like 4,
very minimalist design of your living room. You wanted Samsung's Infinity Edge TV where there's almost no edges on it at all. It was it was on the wall. All of the cables are hidden behind the TV, and you wanted speakers that didn't look like speakers.
Or didn't even look like a soundbar.
Yeah, you don't even like sound bars, because for whatever reason that you wanted to hide all of your tech, then you would get 2 of these. Unfortunately, you need 2, because you would want one on one side of the TV and another on the other side of the TV. So you're going to be spending at least $1,000 US on speakers for this.
Which isn't actually, it's not that unreasonable for like a good soundbar, like 1,500 or whatever for 2.
Yeah, I suppose, but I would much rather a soundbar. Probably will be like better quality, or 2 bookshelf speakers or something like that. But this it's a unique design. It's a unique design. I'll give him that. I haven't seen anything like this before. But I am disappointed. Yeah. I am disappointed that it isn't a display.
Yeah. Like I was saying, like we were expecting it. So like you said, you were expecting them to basically just show you the cover art from the Spotify playlist.
Yeah.
And then it was like a little display. So like, you know, it's basically like just like a magnetic picture that you can take off and replace with whatever you want, right? But
yeah,
I think I think Michael was saying like the next gen version will be like a display.
If there is a next gen version, if anyone buys this. If anyone buys this,
true.
That's people got to buy the first gen first. And I don't know how often people are going to be swapping out the art, because they made a point of like, look how easy it is to swap out your art. Like, I don't know how, if I had a painting on the wall, or say like this display here, I don't swap it out. Like, you know what I mean? Like, but it's...
you're not going to swap it. This is They always just have that, like, it's like, hey, you can swap, like, like you can swap out the shell on your console or whatever. Like, you can remember, like, you could do like swap out face plates, this and that. Like,
Yeah.
what are you gonna do? Like, have 100 of them, swap them out every day?
Yeah. Oh, I don't know. Maybe they're expecting, like, if you're gonna watch Dune, you're gonna put your Dune print into the music frames, just to add to the ambiance of the experience.
Yeah, let's do that.
Interesting product. I don't know how successful it's going to be. It's unique, and I kind of do hope there is a Gen 2, and because it would be cool to have, and whether it is in a frame or not, some form of Bluetooth device or
I
speaker that does display the album art cover.
I thought it was like something like that. I thought, like, I would have assumed that something like this had existed.
I don't know of anything like that. That's like inbuilt on the speaker itself.
No, I don't know. Like, I personally think, like, my personal taste is that, like, if you look at bookshelf speakers for music, if you're after like style, like something artistic, and like you can get such beautiful like wood speakers, like, even like they're not huge, just like nice bookshelves, like they're just, different colors, different colored woofers, like oak finish. They're not cheap either. Like, they're more expensive than these.
Yeah. It's interesting. I like it, and then I don't like it at the same time because it's $750. But we'll see what happens. Is that about all we had from the Samsung event?
Yeah. We should move on to our next story.
Let's hop over
to
Frame Gen.
Frame Gen coming to Xbox and PlayStation. So this has been on the cards for a little while. So basically, AMD's frame generation, right? So DLSS frame generation came out with the 4090 and the 4080.
Yep.
And its adoption has been pretty quick, pretty steady. So like a lot of major releases or popular games are adding frame generation for like DLSS 3's NVIDIA's version of it. AMD said that they were going to release one, and it took them forever. They launched their first version of it with the 7800 XT in September, October of last year. But by the sounds of it, it seems like that was just like almost like an early access version of it, because it had issues and the adoption was like pretty low. Like, it came out for 2 games, and then by the end of the year, there was like 5 games that supported it. So in this year, AMD's FSR3 frame generation is really ramping up. So like dozens of games are adding support. They updated it to a version with Avatar for Ubisoft's Avatar game in December. That's actually a really good implementation. It was a major improvement over what it was a couple of months before that. And then most recently, they announced FSR 3.1. Now, FSR 3.1 improves their upscaling, but it also improves their frame generation technology, and it fully makes it open source. It for developers, it separates upscaling and frame gen, so then they don't have to run together, or they're basically independent. So then you could run AMD's frame generation with NVIDIA DLSS or Intel XeSS, like upscaling, like, and then it's and that update as well makes it easier for console developers to add support. So like there's mentions of like Xbox when they updated to 3.1, and which is all good news, because one of the very first games that added FSR 3 was Immortals of Avium, an EA game that didn't really take off in terms of popularity, but apparently it was pretty good. But like, this is more of just like a opening the floodgates moment, because the developers came out a week or so ago and basically said that they've been working with this company called Enduring, which is actually closely tied to AMD, and so they've had access to whatever updates AMD's been doing with FSR. And so they said that in like a few weeks, it might even come like next week, I think, is that the game is updating to the latest version of FSR3, so it'll be way better than what it was when it debuted last year on PC, but it's also coming to consoles in the same patch. So the PlayStation 5 version and the Xbox version will have frame generation. Now, if you don't know what frame generation is, it's essentially an algorithm. NVIDIA uses AI like they do with DLSS to do their version, but AMD is open. It's like more of an open agnostic thing where it's not reliant on any specific hardware, so it works across all. But basically, what it does is it takes your game, it looks at the previous frame, it looks at the current frame, and it determines through motion vectors and being able, like knowing where, having like actual game data to then generate an artificial frame. So this is it making up its own frame before it actually renders the next frame.
Yeah.
And so what effectively would happen is that if the game is running at 60 frames per second, the effect for you playing would be that it's running at 120 frames per second. Now, when we see DLSS 3, if you've seen like NVIDIA's like videos, like marketing videos where they show like, hey, this is a game, it's running at 42 frames per second, turn on DLSS 3, which includes upscaling and frame generation, and now it's running at 160. And you're like, what's going on? That's like quadruple the frame rate or 3.5 times. It basically means that like when you factor them both in, like basically like 80% of what you're seeing is being generated by AI on NVIDIA side or on the AMD side, an algorithm.
Yeah.
But like the effect is actually pretty good, and there's obviously additional technology that they have to put in to make sure that the latency doesn't increase. So it's not like you're actually running the game at 120 FPS, but it feels like you are, and it's noticeably smoother. There are caveats. The game has to be running, or AMD recommend, and which probably would be in the guidelines or whatever developers are using, is that the game needs to be running at a 60 FPS to get for it to actually work properly.
Why do you think that's the case?
It's because of latency and that there's enough frame data. So for example, like if you're playing a game at like, let's say you're playing at 26 frames per second, right? And it just feels sluggish, right? Then if you double that to 55, whatever, like that, it would be smooth, like a lot smoother.
2 times.
But and it would kind of look smoother, but it would just feel sluggish.
Yeah.
It will still feel the same. Like it's not a magic. It's not like it doesn't automatically make a game that just barely ran now be able to run. Like the game needs to be able to run okay first. But what it does is just basically gives you like a massive perceived performance increase.
Isn't Immortals of Avium a $125 million flop?
Yes, it was a big. Well, I don't know like how much money, but apparently like EA spent big on it. It was in development for ages, and it was a bit of a flop. Like I don't think it sold.
Yeah, I did an article on Immortals of Avium, and a former EA developer said EA put down $85 million to develop the game and then added $40 million for marketing. Despite there being serious talent on the development team, the former employee said the decision to make Immortals a, quote, AAA single-player shooter in today's market was a truly awful idea. They spent $125 million on this game, and it stunk. So I think it's interesting that they're adding the latest version of FSR 3 to a game that 5 people are playing.
Well, here's the thing. It's so for PlayStation 5, I think it's like this week. It should be out now. It's part of PS Plus.
Oh,
it's the free game for the month, so they'll actually get players. And so the patch is dropping this.
Yeah.
Like in a couple of weeks as well. So like it actually is timed for it to actually get more players. Like it's probably going to be added to Game Pass as well very, very soon. So it's going to get game. It's going to get people. Like it's not going to get like everybody playing, but it's going to get probably a bigger audience now than it ever did.
Yeah, but you want. from AMD's perspective, I want
You wanna-
people.
yeah,
I
I know.
want people. I want people to use this tech. I want people to like it. I want people to enjoy it. But you don't go and put it on a game that 40 people or 5 people are playing, and then
No.
like, why would you
No, I
roll that
agree.
out?
Like,
Yeah, that's
yeah,
like you
like-
roll it out on not something as big as like Warzone or something. I don't know.
No,
you do
you do it-
choose a bigger game.
No, you do it with Call of Duty. You do it with Cyberpunk. You do it with
Yeah.
big games. Like frame generation was added to Call of Duty on PC, right? And that's NVIDIA's AI version. Obviously, you need a 40 series GPU for it to run. So that is it's a gatekeeping thing, but it's just based on how it works, right? It's
the architecture.
It's the gold standard because it's using NVIDIA's AI.
Yeah.
So, it doesn't even need to be defended anymore.
Because I'm all about the underdog, like I love the underdog, and we were talking all yesterday after the Samsung event about the 5090 and like the pricing and like all of that kind of stuff. And like NVIDIA can do whatever they want because they hold 95%, probably more, of the GPU market. So I am an AMD. I'm not a stan, but I'm about the underdog. I want their tech to catch up to NVIDIA because I want a competitive market. And to choose Immortals of Avium as the game where they're going to essentially display their new technology, I think is a poor decision. Like, I think you want it on a Call of Duty or a Warzone, because then players that enable that, they'll jump on forums, they'll go to Reddit, they'll make TikToks and be like, hey, you need to turn this on. You need to turn on this AMD feature. But then they make decisions like this. It's like, what are you doing?
This is good because like it brings frame gen to all these platforms. Like when they announced 3.1 and they said, like, say with that 3.1 upgrade, they announced that it was coming to Vulkan as well, which is Vulkan is, so you got DirectX. Vulkan is a different API. Vulkan is an open source API, but it's Doom, right? Like, and id Software use it exclusively. Yeah. And if you've played Doom Eternal on PC or even console, it runs at a rock solid 60 FPS.
It's so good.
Buttery smooth, no latency input issues,
id
no
Software
rendering issues.
I bow.
It's just like a technical masterpiece, right? And then when Vulkan was one of the first APIs to get ray tracing, but then when they added ray tracing to Doom Eternal, which was like reflections and shadows, I think, like there was an impact to performance, but you can run it natively in 4K with ray tracing on a 4090 at like 150 FPS, right?
Yeah, approximately.
Like natively, ray tracing, right? So it's like Vulkan is incredible. So AMD's FSR3 and frame generation upscaling now supports that. So and with the Indiana Jones game from Machine Games, because their games have used id Tech, so odds are it's going to be Vulkan as well, which means it's going to be DirectX, I think, on console or Xbox. I think it has to because of how the console works. But like my prediction was that, oh, look, they're mentioning this update to FSR and that like a guaranteed frame generation is coming this year, and my guess would be Indiana Jones by the time that like AMD roll it out. But then this news came out with Immortals of Avium, not as exciting, right? But it just shows that it's already happening and it's coming to PlayStation as well. And we've already talked about the PS5 Pro and the PlayStation 5 Pro, where they're doing their own AI upscaling, right? And then people are saying, oh, are they going to do frame generation? Well, yes, but it's also coming to the non-Pro PlayStation 5 and the Xbox Series S and X. And yeah, so FSR3 could be a really cool sort of like second half of the Xbox and PS5 life cycle bit of tech.
Yeah.
For like people with high refresh rate TVs to be able to go, oh, now my performance mode that was 60 FPS is now 120 with frame generation, and it just looks smoother.
Yeah, feels smoother. Yeah, no, that's good. It adds a bit of life to the current gen consoles. That's for sure. And
Yeah.
it's good that it is rolling out because it will give it that final bit of life until the next one comes, which I think.
Yeah, because people on that are traditionally like console gamers, so like if you just game on PlayStation 5, if you just game on Xbox, or if you just game on like Switch, but like you're interested in the tech and like you've got a PC but you don't really game on it, blah blah blah. But like if you game on a console and you're serious about it and you know and you're following what's happening, etc., with Unreal Engine, you know about all these terms. Like you would have heard about DLSS for years.
Oh, definitely. Yeah.
You would have heard about frame generation, especially in the last couple of years, going, oh, like what's all this cool tech happening on the PC side? When's that coming to console? So console doesn't really have like a DLSS equivalent for upscaling. And this new update for FSR 3.1, apparently, like they're saying they've dramatically improved the motion clarity and like the upscaling process. So it is like a big update to it.
Do you think you'll test it? You're gonna give it a shot. We'll have to report back to the podcast if you do some testing on it, and you might have to do. Oh, I suppose you've done FSR 3, haven't you? You've done motion clarity testing on FSR 3, and then you can do 3.1.
I've actually got Immortals of Avium. That was the game because it was only available on like 2 games, so I got access to those 2 games to be able to test it when the 7800 XT came out. So I'll be able to update Immortals of Avium and I'll be able to run it like on a 4080 or 4090 and be able to compare it with, like that game doesn't also have DLSS, but I'll be able to like then if Ubisoft's Avatar gets updated, because that has DLSS as well, I'll be able to compare them both. Yeah.
No, that's good. That's good. Is that about all you had on that story there?
So yeah, frame generation coming to consoles.
Very cool. Very cool. Let's hope that it's some more popular games on the next one. For the next one's coming out. All right, let's go. The Razer 4K gaming laptop. What do we think about this? How much?
So,
okay, don't tell me. Don't tell me.
Don't
tell me.
Let me tell you the specs, and you tell me how much do you think this would be in US dollars.
No. I want to guess how much battery life we got on this.
Well. Don't worry about battery life. This is all
what do
about
you mean?
specs,
It's a laptop.
You know, gaming laptops have never had, and never will have like super long life batteries.
45 minutes.
45 minutes. Well, I mean, I don't think they battery into power. Okay.
Did they say that in the specs? Because I haven't scrolled down yet.
It's got a 91.7 watts per hour rechargeable lithium-ion battery.
Does it have the milliamps? It'd probably be like 8,000. Maybe 10.
Maximum graphics power. Yeah, you got dynamic boost. You got all the anyway. So like, it's going to be standard for whatever the average is for laptops. It's going to be pretty much the same. But this is all about the specs, right?
Right.
So you're going to have the top of the line Intel Core 14th Gen 14900HX CPU for mobile. You have a fully unlocked 175 watt NVIDIA GeForce RTX 4090 laptop GPU. So 175 watt laptop GPU is pretty impressive. So it's the 4090 laptop GPU. It's also super thin, 21.99 millimeters.
Damn.
4.86 inches. It's an 18-inch display.
Love that.
3840 by 2400 pixels. So it is actually a bit more pixels than 4K because it's a 16 by 10. So it's a 4K plus display.
Wow.
And it is the world's first of this type of display, 4K. That's got a 200 hertz refresh rate on a laptop, 200 hertz. And it's also the first laptop equipped with Thunderbolt 5, which is 120 gigabits per second of bandwidth, triple Thunderbolt 4.
Jesus.
So if you're talking about like a fast USB C type port, can't get faster than that. It's got DDR5 memory, comes with Windows, etc., etc. So how much do you think So they're basically that, which it comes with 4 terabytes of storage and 64 gigs of memory, which I somehow wrote all wrong. So let me fix that up in the back end. But anyway, so how much do you think that's going to cost? Like,
okay.
US dollars.
US dollars? My internal barometer for this says 4,999.
It's actually a bit cheaper than that. Yeah, 4,799.
I was damn close.
It's basically like for Australians, so just so we get our sort of reference, it's like $8,000 Australian.
7,247.
Oh yeah, there we go. Yeah, over 7,000.
That is insane.
For a laptop, man. This is like a gaming laptop. You can obviously build a gaming PC for cheaper than this, but that obviously is more powerful. Like a desktop 4090 is more powerful than a laptop 4090. That goes without saying. Just based on you look at the size of a desktop 4090, you can't squeeze that amount of power into a laptop.
Not a chance.
It's just not possible.
That's a cool feature though. It does 2560 by 1600 at 300 hertz.
Yeah, so
that's
nice. I'm going to say there's another version, so it's still 18 inches, where it's I would actually probably prefer this version.
I was gonna say I prefer that one.
Yeah, so it's a QHD plus 2560 by 1600 300 hertz mini LED display.
Yeah, I like that one more.
So they both got like a low response times of like about 1 or so millisecond, 100% of the DCI-P3 color gamut accuracy. So they're vibrant, colorful screens.
Yeah.
But I think the specs of the QHD version don't quite go up to. Let me have a look. Let me bring it up here. The 18.
Because I didn't like the idea. Like this laptop is insane, but to have 4K squeezed in 18 inches, it's gonna look weird. I think everything's gonna be small.
Yeah.
So, and I'm also concerned about the battery life on it, but I would prefer to get a QHD 2560 by 1600 at 300 hertz and play my games at I would probably cap them at like 144. Let's be honest. Like I don't need to hit 300 hertz on my laptop, but it's nice to have. But yeah, this is some really crazy laptop. They've jammed as much tech in this as they can.
The thing is that like they've at least it is kind of at least they know what they're doing, right? So like you can only get if you want the 4K one, you can only get it with the top of the line spec. You can only get it with the 4090. You can only get it with the 4 terabytes, the 64 gigs of memory, because it's going to need a lot of memory to be able to. It's just going to need to run like more than 4K, right? It's 4K plus.
Absolutely.
To run that amount of pixels just for even just day-to-day use, you can't just, it's got the top of the line CPU by default. Whereas the QHD one starts at with a 4070 laptop GPU, so like it's considerably cheaper. It's like I think it's like starts at like $3,000 US, so it's like $1,800 US cheaper for like the baseline model, which is still impressive because it's got like a 300 hertz mini LED display.
No, I'm
it's an impressive laptop.
I'm about it, man. That's cool. I do like that. I would never buy one, but I do like looking at it. I'd never buy this. Let's be honest. We'd never buy one of these.
No chance.
Yeah.
Because you can't really the thing is you wouldn't spend that much on a PC, but you could potentially justify it because of the upgradability. So like even if you were to say, I'm going to build like a 4090 rig, you'd be able to in 3 years time swap out the GPU with like a 6090 or something.
Yeah, of course.
4 years or whatever. Right? And then it's just going to, but you can't like take this laptop and then swap out the GPU, really.
No, you can't. It'd be a nightmare.
You can't really. You can like expand, but the top of the line is really there's no room for improvement after that. It's just going to depreciate value, and and then in a decade you'll be like, hey, I spent when it's. No, when you look back on like hardware from like 10, 15 years ago and you're like, that was like super expensive back in the day and now it's like worthless.
I mean, people are buying them, man. They keep making these gaming laptops, and it's a big industry. So there is people out there that are probably chomping at the bit to get their hands on this thing.
But if you're after like this is probably the most powerful gaming laptop available at the moment.
Yeah. Until we get to Computex, and then there's like 40 different variants of the same spec. Zeus will have their version of this, and but like they all have like, I mean, there's so many good gaming laptops that sort of like, I mean, from companies like, you look at the Razers, you look at the Asus ones, the MSI's top laptops, HP do good ones. HP,
yeah. There's a lot of like.
Is that their Pavilion line? Is that their gaming line?
I think they call it Omen.
Omen, that's it. Yes, yeah, Omen. Wicked laptop, man. That's cool. That is cool. All right, next
story. Next gen Xbox goes all in on gaming AI.
Yeah, boy.
So this was something that I noticed. So like Windows Central, Jez Corden over there, who's a known Xbox dude, writer.
It is Windows Central.
Yeah, so he like always reports on like Xbox stuff and opinion pieces and has a lot of sources, etc., etc. So he basically got hands on an internal email from Xbox President Sarah Bond, sent internally, and a lot of people reported on it, but like not many people picked out the quite thing that I kind of like noticed on it. So basically the email goes, this is obviously post Activision Blizzard acquisition. The email goes, it's been nearly 6 months since we came together as an organization. Corporate fluff, really. Collective achievements in that time frame, blah, blah, blah. Everyone should feel proud. But then she says, we are moving full speed ahead on our next generation hardware, focused on delivering the biggest technological leap ever in a generation. So they're basically all in, or basically in full production, or maybe not production, but they're like already like in whatever stage of developing the next generation of Xbox consoles.
Yeah.
And it's going to be the biggest generational leap. But that's such a vague term, right? But then after this, the next bit, this is the bit that I kind of like took my attention, was we are innovating in gaming AI, capital G, focus on delivering player first, developer first value for discovery, engagement, and creator velocity, which is also kind of like corporate speak, because velocity is a weird word to use in that context. But I guess if you parse it right, so biggest technological leap ever in a generation is pretty vague. It could mean a lot of things, right? It could just teraflops or this type of. It could be, you could tie it to one specific thing and be right. You know what I mean? It could be just like false advertising, but they've obviously said it enough times now that it's obviously going to mean something. But by saying that we're innovating in gaming AI and giving it a name, and saying that gaming AI is player first and developer first, which means it's a suite of technologies. So then the next gen Xbox, which has also already been rumored to have dedicated AI hardware, which is a given, I think, now in 2024. It'll be silly. There's no real way that it's not going to have AI hardware.
I'd be shocked and appalled.
And they're already working on their own generative AI technologies for gaming. That's a given. We're already seeing it stuff in DirectX and things like that. So basically, I think we should expect, if it's gaming AI tech, so making life easier for it to be like player first, upscaling, frame generation, auto HDR, like NVIDIA's new RTX HDR. Like Xbox has a version of it, but NVIDIA's is better because it uses AI. So they'll have a next-gen version of that. Ways to potentially upscale and frame gen older previous generation games, player first stuff. And then for developers, it'll be that stuff that they've kind of been, DirectX is kind of slowly talking about, making optimization easier using generative AI to do things like that, development tools, etc., etc. So they're in a good position to have like a whole suite of like AI tech for their next generation Xbox. And by saying that it's already called gaming AI, it's already got a name.
Yeah, it's capitalized. I don't understand what creative velocity would mean. I'm guessing there's some
creator velocity. Creator, like that would mean like content creators, right? Like
yes,
for streaming and stuff like that.
So I'm thinking like screen
AI
captures,
like like RTX broadcast, like that sort of stuff, like auto green screen, noise reduction for streaming.
I'm thinking maybe there is some kind of features that enables screen captures, screen recordings, maybe a bit, and also the accessibility of sharing all of those to the respective social media platforms, perhaps integration in streaming as well, making it a bit easier for you to connect up your Twitch and share content like VODs and etc. Because what is the creative? The word velocity is really throwing me here.
No, I know, because like what is like velocity is just like movement, right?
Yeah,
like
the speed of creators. So
like that would be like.
So from that word, I'm thinking it has like to be tools
like AI,
that
like AI noise suppression. So if you're just recording, don't worry, your microphone is only going to pick up your voice.
Yeah,
AI. It'll just be like, I don't know, like
the velocity of a creator is how fast they are able to share content that they have created. So I'm guessing it is going to be integration into what I was saying before, like social platforms, and making it easier for creators to create content on the next gen Xbox and then share it, because they so the full quote is, "We are innovating in gaming AI, capitalized, focused on delivering player first, developer first value for discovery, engagement, and creative velocity." So for discovery, engagement, and creators. So
that also means like it's going to be like the UI. It's just going to be AI everywhere, right? Gaming AI, and I think it's going to be all about tech that makes games look and play better or improve that experience. Because like we were talking about, like like now when we're getting like with like ray tracing and stuff like that, and increasing resolutions in 4K, and it's like it's still like, like to be able to get affordable hardware to be able to do 4K, it's like it's still a challenge. Like it's not easy. And the reason why like all these technologies that are doing really well on PCs, because of AI, and like, and to like the biggest technological leap ever is like, well, with AI we can upscale and it's going to look the same as native, and we can get it to run faster with frame generation. We can do this, we can do that. We can make games load faster. We can lower the install sizes. We can do this, we can do that. Like the sky's the limit, like, like whatever technologies they develop.
Yeah, it is. It's going to be it's really good. It's going to be a big leap. I'm apprehensive because it's all, this is corporate jargon a bit.
Yeah, it's like you think email and it's going to be candid, but it's like it's so measured. It
is very measured. Is that about all that you had on that? That's a very good take from that Windows central
like
report.
That whole, by having like naming it gaming AI and then saying players, developers, creators, discovery, engagement, means like there's some big stuff that they probably just don't want. I mean, they're saying they're innovating, so they're obviously doing something
different.
Something different.
Yeah.
And Microsoft is spending so much money on AI that it would be silly for them not to say that, okay, the next gen Xbox is going to be, wait till you see what we're doing with AI.
Yeah, they're mostly AI at this point.
Like based on like the non-game, like look at Windows and
Copilot.
And like even just like the business stuff and Azure networks and cloud. It's all.
Oh, there was that report I did. I think it was last week on I'll see if I can find it. Xbox.
Oh yeah, like there's going to be like a chatbot.
Yeah, chatbot. Yeah. So that is probably another feature that is that they're planning to include. And making an AI. Microsoft confirms it's making an animated AI chatbot for Xbox consoles. So we're going to see some kind of virtual agent and assistant that will. I'm guessing now that you've told me about this new email, maybe that assistant will be able to help you learn how to use all these AI features.
Yeah, that would be part of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, wow. Okay, cool. I wonder if it'll have generative AI. Oh, wait, no, it will. Lastly, the chatbot will come with unspecified AI features that may assist in game content creation, game operations, and its Xbox platform and devices. The chatbot may also be capable of creating AI-generated art and assets for games, while also being used for game testing and generative AI NPCs.
Okay, that's a lot of
that's a lot of things. That's a lot of things. But
a lot of this,
look at that. Game
sort of
content creation speaks to the creator's velocity remark in the email.
Yeah.
So, yeah, maybe you'll be able to edit your videos on the Xbox, or the AI would do it for you.
Yeah, like highlights or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Cool. I like it. Next story. Let's go 5080 and 5090 holiday 2024.
Yeah. So this would be basically it would follow, like if you look at the 40 series, right? The 40 series launched with like the 4090, the flagship, in October of 2020, and then the 4080 arrived in November of 2020, and then it wasn't until the following year, or I think it would have been like March or April, where the 4070 came out. Like it's always like that's the way it's been working for a little while now. So
yeah,
this is based on a Asian publication, but also sources that are NVIDIA partners. So it's not obviously specified. So but this is like, because obviously these companies don't actively leak information, because then you're in the bad books, right? So like an NVIDIA partner would be MSI, ASUS, PNY, everybody, like
EVGA.
You go into, that's right, you go into like or not anymore, because EVGA is off the table now. I think they stopped making GPUs.
Oh, really? I didn't know that. Oh,
yeah, that was a big thing. But they were like huge in America. They're not really big for us in Australia or Asia.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was like a big loss. So basically any brand of GeForce GPU that you see in a store. So basically based on sources from partners, which could be individuals or from any of these companies, they're saying that they're prepping, or NVIDIA is prepping them for a 5080 and 5090 launch at holiday 2024 or Q4 2024, or October, November, December. I don't think they'll go as far as December. NVIDIA usually try to do their launches in October, November. Yeah. So that we'll be getting to flagships at the end of this year, which would be kind of insane, because the 4090 is still untouchable and goes for more money now than it did at launch.
Yeah.
Because of the AI boom and because there's no competition, right? So if the 5090 comes and it's 60% faster, 50% conservative, 40%, like anything like 40% and above is just going to be bananas for a GPU of that level of performance, right? Because it's just going to be, oh, okay, that's now even more insane. But there's obviously, like we talked about last week, there's no competition at the high end, and even earlier you mentioned as well, we were discussing it yesterday. So basically, they're just going to launch, 2 more flagships that are just going to be the fastest GPUs that you can get, and there's going to be no alternative if you wanted to go AMD, or basically, there's no Radeon alternative. So basically, if you want the very best gaming GPU at the end of this year, you'll have to pick up, you have 2 choices. 5080 or 5090.
Oh, what do you think about the prices? Where do you think they'll be priced at?
I think the flagship's going to be $2,000 now, US.
You reckon?
I mean, technically the 4090 is 1,600 US, and which was obviously based on the pandemic prices, and everything just went up, and they cost more to make, etc., etc. But if they're currently being sold for like close to $2,000 now, they're kind of like, some of them are coming down. You can get them for like 1,700 now US, which is close to the MSRP. Like, they haven't dropped. And if this is going to be more powerful, I think NVIDIA can still sell 4090s, right? And if they don't want to slash prices on their existing lineup, or what you would do, which Anthony in his article is rightfully guess, is that basically, well, it's not necessarily a guess, but like an educated assessment of it, is that like, okay, you've got 2 more flagships to replace your existing flagships, and there's no real competition or price incentive or price equivalent products for you to compete directly with. So you would say, okay, if we drop our 4090 price down and then slot this in at a slightly more expensive, like this is the best case scenario for consumers, and then we can slot the 5080 in at just a bit lower than the existing 4090 price, and then all we really need to do is just make sure that the 4080 Super holds on to its $1,000 or so, or $900 to $1,000 pricing bracket, and the 4090 can drop down to like $1,200 or whatever, or whatever
that makes sense.
And then they can keep that status quo for like another year.
Yeah, definitely.
Because there's no competition. Because there is also rumors that, well, not rumors, but then there's other people saying that they've heard from Intel that their Battle Mage is coming out at the end of the year, which would be around the same time. But then their performance is only going to be targeting the existing 4070. So it's like, it's a different performance class. It's not competition, right? It's not a relevant comparison. So then, if they do that sort of thing where they just lower their 4090 a bit in terms of price, and then keep the status quo really everywhere else, and just play that based on what happens in terms of like supply, demand, competition, etc., then they can slot in these GPUs at the existing prices, or even more expensive than the existing prices, and be done with it. Like, as in, like, we don't need to worry about anything really, because if anybody wants the best, they just have to buy one of these two.
Yeah.
And also for AI as well. So if it's going to be people that want there are a lot of people buying 4090s just for AI.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Because you got the VRAM, and if they increase the VRAM on the 4080 to like be 24 gig, and if they make the 5090, let's say 32 gig or 48 gig or something, they probably won't, because there's no real need for that for gaming if these are supposedly gaming GPUs. But like, it becomes like affordable, right? Because like in the corporate, like all the like the Ada 4000, like those sort of like corporate, like the business grade or the workstation GPUs.
Yeah.
The workstation ones, like they like triple the price, and they're not even designed for gaming and stuff. Like like, whereas if you just buy off like a 4090, you can do the same thing really for the most part.
Yeah, especially if you're just like testing the waters with AI generation, and like
there's people like that comment on like news stories or GPU, like when the people are talking about like the 49s and stuff, and they say like, why would anybody buy this GPU for gaming? Like I understand, like mine is for AI. Like I've seen that comment a lot.
Oh wow.
Mine is primarily for AI, but then I also use it for gaming. Like, I don't understand why you would need this much power just for gaming.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? And I think that's going to be the case. Like it's option 1, it's exciting because it's new flagship, new levels of performance, and also NVIDIA will introduce DLSS 4, right? That's a given.
Yeah.
Like, DLSS is up to version 3.7 now. So
it's coming.
They're going to have to, like they don't release, it's not just going to be like, hey, it's more powerful. It's going to be like, no, and guess what? We've got this now. You can do this, and et cetera, et cetera. And also the rumor is that these are going to be Like now, if these are 2 to 3 times faster for ray tracing, which is the rumor, but
That's crazy.
Like people are always expecting like a sort of like a major moment for ray tracing to be like an exponential increase, and there are rumors for that, but like I still don't know how you do that, like how you get 2 to 3 times.
I don't know.
Let's say that
maybe
those
it's
rumors
like
are true.
70% more performance on a 5090. Maybe that is 2 to 3 times.
Yeah, like let's say if it's 2 to 3 times more performance for ray tracing, then the 5090 would be an incredible GPU.
Yeah.
For playing like cutting edge PC games. Like
anything.
Max settings.
4K 240 FPS.
Like, because we talked about like games like, you know, Star Wars Outlaws, which got a release date for August, actually a lot sooner than expected. That's going to have ray tracing, reflex, and DLSS, and that looks really good. It's an open world Star Wars game from the Ubisoft team that did Division and Avatar, which have been like visual benchmarks for years. But this is obviously it's their own engine, but it looks like really good. There was that Black Myth Wukong game.
That looks sick.
Which looks sick. You know, there's a new Assassin's Creed coming out at the end of the year, the Feudal Japan one. It's been heavily rumored. There's also existing like this path traced Cyberpunk still that you still need an absolute beast of a GPU to run, and it's just like it's a game changing thing if you play the game with that mode. There's Alan Wake. There's still like a Baldur's Gate, you need a beast of a rig to play at like max settings. There's still like enough to justify this sort of card existing, but at the same time, it's still like overkill for 99.999% of people, right?
Absolutely. That's why I love it.
Exactly, right? It's why it's exciting, but also, but you know, Halo products are kind of like that, right? It's like you can't like somebody walks into a store and go like, let me sell you on this.
Yeah. Did you want to jump over to SpaceX?
Yeah.
So we have some more details for SpaceX's plan to get people on Mars. Elon Musk took to stage at Starbase and did a live stream that lasted about 45 minutes or so. During that live stream, he talked about all of what the company is expecting to do this year and early next year with Starship. If you've been following along with the podcast, Starship is the cream of the crop when it comes to space travel, putting any kind of mass in orbit. SpaceX is the leading company in terms of, if you just look at the dimension of mass to orbit, there is no company on the planet that is launching more mass to orbit than SpaceX. They're the gold standard for it. And at the height of their rocket development quests is the Starship launch vehicle. Now, this thing is it's currently done 3 orbital test flights, all ending in fiery explosions because we haven't even attempted to try and land it yet. And during this live stream, Musk revealed what will be happening, not in the 4th orbital test flight, but likely the 5th or 6th. And we're looking at landings now, because we've been during the 3rd test flight, we saw that Starship was able to turn belly up, and that is it's a part of how the rocket goes. It goes up, and then as it's coming down, it turns its belly side down for more resistance as it's plummeting towards the surface of the planet, and then kind of like kicks its ass around, and then you know, engages boosters, and that slows it down as it's coming down to a landing. It's actually really cool. During the 3rd test flight, we achieved the belly stage. So the next attempt is to land the booster, Super Heavy, on what Musk is calling a virtual tower. So these towers will be first put in somewhere in the ocean, and Starship will go up, come down, belly side, and then attempt to be caught on a tower with two little arms. At Starbase, Musk has already built one tower, and he's calling it Mechazilla because it is taller than Godzilla. And the design is kind of mad. It has got two arms, and the ship vehicle itself, like, because it splits into, Super Heavy will slot in between the two arms, and ideally there'll be a second tower, and Starship, the vehicle itself, will land between the arms on the second tower. Now, there's obviously going to be some major problems with this before it's viable means of going to Mars. However, let's talk. I just want to get a quote up here. Outlining what we can expect out of 2024. They're preparing for their fourth test flight. The main objective will be landing the rocket somewhere in the ocean on a virtual tower. SpaceX plans on catching Starship's booster Super Heavy on a tower they call Mechazilla. Super Heavy will need to achieve a successful catch, a successful landing on the virtual tower on the ocean before they try and test it on the actual launch tower back at the base. It's going to be wild to see that thing land back at the launch site, because if it goes terribly, it could potentially destroy a large portion of the test site, which is only going to, this thing is so big that this has never been attempted before. It is, it's pushing the envelope for space travel. Starship is capable of, I think at the moment, 120 tons or 100 tons to orbit.
Yep.
We are looking at a next generation Starship of about 200 tons by the time that we're attempting to go to Mars. And look, it's going to be a spectacle to see. The Starship vehicle itself will require 2 ocean catchers before the company attempts to catch it on land. I'm not sure exactly why it is more difficult, or I'm guessing it's more difficult to catch the ship itself rather than the booster. But maybe they just need to get it a bit more optimized, because eventually there's going to be cargo and people in that. So
that's why they're testing it on water, right? You have to test on the ocean, because if it falls apart, it's less cleanup. Less cleanup, less debris, less environmental impact. Apart from the ocean.
Yeah, apart from the ocean, of course. Don't worry about that one. Here's a quote from Musk. At least two consecutive successes of a given design that land them at a specific point in the ocean or smash into a specific point in the ocean before he attempts to bring it onto land. During the presentation, he also talked about, this whole process is the goal to get people on Mars. He went a little bit esoteric during the live stream. He explained that he has never seen any form of credible evidence to suggest that alien life exists.
He went on a tangent.
Well, he was just kind of like setting up his reasoning why people need to go to Mars, and I kind of subscribe to his thought process as well, is that there is no credible information, video content or whatever that is like, okay, there is definitely aliens. There's always some, like, we have the Tic Tac video. We've got a lot of weird anomalies and stuff like that that have been caught on video, and obviously like governments around the world aren't showing us 100% of what they have.
Yeah, and there's so many like sightings and this and that.
Classified documents, but who knows? They could all be really high-tech drones that are under a black budget that is all classified, and it could all be man-made. So his reasoning is, if we haven't seen any alien life, where is it? Where are the aliens? This is like the Fermi paradox. I don't know if you've ever heard about that before, but like, if the universe is 13.8 billion years old, it should be teeming with life. We should have seen it by now.
Not necessarily.
Why is that? That's the Fermi paradox.
Yeah, but like I've not seeing it, like based on like the distances, it's like if we can't comprehend how to travel from our
but we've only been around like 50,000 years. Civilization has only been around for let's say, if you want to, Musk uses a good point of like, sophisticated civilization started probably around the time we started to write stuff. So if the universe itself has been around billions of years, don't you think if you were to take the same marvels in technology and that timeline and the acceleration of that over billions of years, we would have worked out, well, not we, like other life forms would have worked out how to traverse these distances?
Yeah, but then the conspiracy is that like, yes, they have, but then they don't make themselves known because we're a lesser life form. Sure,
but that's taking into the intent of the aliens. But like the sheer number of aliens traveling around the universe, we should have seen something by now. Something. Like the reason as to why the Fermi paradox suggests that there's a great filter. There's some form of filter that comes into existence where we don't achieve that. Maybe we are trapped on our planet. Maybe we all die. Maybe we kill it. Like the species kills themselves via nuclear, like just a complete wipeout of the planet or stuff like that. With all that in mind, he wants to protect Earth by moving the species, not all of us, to Mars, because if we are the first, and I think it's better to assume that we are, then consciousness is a tiny little light in a completely pitch black universe, and we have a responsibility to keep that light like a light. Like if that spark goes out, then the universe will be completely black. So to do that, the first step is to move people to Mars. Because if we destroy our own planet, then at least a portion of the species will be on Mars, and from there they will be able to travel to other planets. And then you've got the problem that you brought up with the sheer distances between habitable worlds. But then you can also take Mars or the moon, or probably Mars first, and make it more habitable. Like you just need to warm it up, really, and make the atmosphere more dense, because it's got 1% of Earth's atmosphere. And the first steps of that all involve Starship, all of them. So these orbital test flights will eventually lead to a next gen Starship that will be able to take 200 tons. And once we are going to Mars, it will take, Starship will need 6 refuels on its journey to Mars before it can make that. And the new technology that they're going to be introducing and hopefully demonstrating early next year is where is it? It's ship to ship propellant transfer. Yeah, that's what it's called. Here we go. This new technology will be called ship-to-ship propellant transfer, and for every trip to Mars, Starship will need to be refueled 6 times. So a ratio of 5 to 1. 6 I should have wrote 6 to 1 there. Musk said that SpaceX plans on demonstrating ship-to-ship propellant transfer sometime next year. It is that's going to be really cool to see because in orbit, we're going to see a Starship vehicle, the ship itself join up with another tanker. And it's similar to, I don't know if you've ever seen how planes do it. Have you seen how planes?
Yeah, like when they refuel, like they well, the only way I've seen it like isn't like is it Air Force One? No. Cliffhanger? No. Like one of those movies, you know, when they're like if they refuel the plane. I think it was like Air Force One.
Yeah, it was
like,
whatever. It's happened lots of times.
You basically you connect a fuel line from like one plane that is basically just a fuel tanker.
Mm-hmm.
Just like sidles up next to the existing plane, and then you connect them, and then that's it. You just refill. It's like a mobile gas station. So this will be like a similar thing.
Yeah, in orbit, which is going to be really cool. I'm sure it will all be live streamed as well. And then we get into what actually happens when we're heading to Mars. And this is where it gets somewhat dark. So when the ship of Starship, I don't know why they call it the ship. I really wish they differentiated the name because when you say Starship is actually the ship, and then the super heavy booster. It's like, just make a different name for the front half of it. Jesus Christ. When it lands on Mars, Elon believes that the people that are on Mars will need to pull apart the ship and use its resources because the materials will be very valuable. Now, this means that there is no way back home. At least for, I'm going to guess, at least 3 or 4 landings on Mars of people. So the idea is to make Starship so big and capable of carrying 200 tons that when they land, they'll be able to set up a Mars base with one landing of Starship. So that we don't need multiple landings on there. That's a good idea, but it also means that if that one landing fails, there is nothing. We're back at square one. And also, there is no way with the current designs of Starship that they are able to then launch off of Mars again and return home. So he actually said the words, and I'll read this entire quote here. You actually want to use the ship. Take apart the ship and use it for raw materials on Mars. Because the materials will be so valuable, most of the ships you won't want to bring back. You would just want to use them for raw materials. Eventually, we will want to bring ships back, and I think we will want to give people the option of coming back because they're more likely to want to go if there's some option of coming back. This is where it gets really dark. But I think most of the people that go to Mars will never come back to Earth. So these are true pioneers in the most human sense.
But I think there's going to be people that will be able to reconcile that.
I 100% believe that as well. Like that, I don't think...
That just means that like most people obviously wouldn't be cut out for it, right?
Yes.
But there will be people that will be cut out for that type of mission.
100%.
That's based on just the history of human exploration. It's like, well...
That's what happens.
The early explorers and pioneers, like you think they set out going, oh, I'd better have an option of coming back home.
Yeah, Columbus took a chance.
Like you take a chance. Like, you know, it's all like you probably won't come back.
Yeah,
but what makes this darker is the sheer distance, but it's also the isolation, but it's also definitively like there is no way to get back. Like you can't.
Yeah,
like
you're gone.
You can't just be like, oh, like maybe I'll hop on this little boat and try and make my way home. It might take me months, whatever.
Yeah, like, there is no way that you're getting back. So that is, in an essence, SpaceX's plan is to leave the astronauts on Mars stranded. But that is the process for a Mars base. I don't know. What do you think about this whole quest for Mars? Do you think it is necessary? Do you subscribe to the theory that, or the thoughts that if humans are the first, we have a responsibility of keeping consciousness alive?
I think there is a responsibility to. I think like there's grades of it, right? You've got immediate community responsibility, which is to take care of people in general, and then you've got, you know, like advancing the species education, but then also, like
city level.
There's evolution that happens, but then if you look at the species and if you look at long term, but I think there's always a value for that as well. So it's like at one, like any sort of sci-fi film or whatever, or fiction, or even just dreaming about like a distant future, and you go like, if you go most creatives or those that have some understanding of science and things like that, like if you would think of like the distant future, like 1,000 years from now, or 300 years from now, humanity, you'd be like, okay, we would have bases on the moon, we might have colonized Mars, we might have like some deep space missions, like, light speed missions going with people hibernating somehow, technology of being able to go into like a pure deep coma of like, they can be on this ship for like a century and head to this galaxy, and then whatever the case is, like you can envision that. And so Musk is right in saying that, and you're right as well. It's like it starts with this, like it has to start somewhere.
Yeah.
And it's a lot of money, and you might say, well, what's the return on an investment, or like where am I? Like there's nothing there. Like, it's like there's a common argument. It's like, well, why would we go to Mars if there's no atmosphere, no water, there's no this, there's no that? Why go anywhere? You know what I'm saying? Like,
that's true. Yeah.
Like, so like I'm all on board with it. And it's all relative too, like the amount of money that's being spent on certain things anyway, like outside of, like let's say it's going to cost $1 trillion to get to Mars. You go, okay. And you go, well, that could be better spent elsewhere. Sure.
Yeah.
But there's $1 trillion being spent on wars and other bullshit. Like,
it's like just weapons.
It's not like you can't single one thing out to say like, where's the value in? Then that becomes like a what about thingo. Like, one of the worst things you can do for, not worst things, but like an argument that has very little value ultimately is to say, like, if I say X and then you say, well, what about this? And then I say, well, what about that? It's like, it's irrelevant if you're not focused on that one thing. And the one thing, like you said, is preserving the species, but then also expanding our knowledge and our understanding of the universe, right? If that's the ultimate goal, then this is what you do.
Yeah. Yeah, the return on going to Mars is, I would say, it's zero in the sense of monetary gain, but
unless they find some like fancy chip making materials on there that they can haul back.
Look, there is lots of valuable minerals and stuff.
You look at like these like you look at like Dune, or you look at like whatever, like sci-fi novels, like, you got these thinkers like Asimov and Arthur C. Clarke, and when they're thinking of the future, they're thinking of like, well, you can mine on an asteroid, right? Like this is a cobalt asteroid. Cobalt is like a rare earth mineral, but this asteroid's full of it. So you build a base on there and you're just mining it, and there's basically an endless supply, and you can use this for this and this and this. And then
rechargeable batteries, yeah.
You know what I mean? Like there's reasons to do, and you like the moon, like there's materials on the moon that are valuable that you could then use to then, but then like the moon, colonizing the moon is like, well, then the moon will become a base, then all Starship production happens on the moon because of the low gravity and less fuel required, like it dramatically reduced the amount of fuel you need to take off.
Yeah.
Like exponentially, right? Because the problem with Starship on Earth is the fact that it's with our atmosphere.
It's so dense and there's a lot of gravity.
Yeah. So like there's, like it all has to be done. And like these are the steps to get there.
Yeah. I think it's a noble quest, because I think we were talking about this before before we got on our separate planes. Elon Musk is by no means a perfect man. He's made some pretty egregious mistakes, said some pretty egregious things. His timelines are optimistic. He's pioneering four different
with or whatever. Like it's like that's like irrelevant for this specific
Yeah, he's
discussion because we're talking about SpaceX and this is what's happening and if he's spearheading it.
that's awesome.
Or
There's no one else doing it.
It's not like he's coming out and saying, "Look, hey, I'm developing like the latest F-16 or F-18 billion-dollar jets or whatever."
Yeah, just to make
like,
more money.
Like missiles. It's not like Starship is like a missile.
Yeah, per launch, it's like $100 million or something like that, and they all end in explosions. and then they're like, "Yeah, that was a good one. All right, next, let's get the good one. Let's get an even better one." Let's go over to I don't know if I put this in there. This is something that I thought was really cool. Oh no, I did. Scientists discovered genetics play a critical role in being good at gaming. Now, I thought this was really interesting. So what a team did is
this I saw a bit of this one, but this one like is very specific because it comes down to how you perceive images.
Yeah, well, it comes down to I suppose you're right. The test is first, we've talked about photoreceptors before. Humans see by converting light into electrical signals through cells called photoreceptors. Then they transmit those signals through the optic nerve to the region of the brain responsible for image formation, known as the visual cortex. So what a team did is they took 88 volunteers, put goggles on and put a blinking LED light in front of their sight, and the LED light blinked at different speeds. The test
is cool because it's almost as
no, you're right.
It's almost as like basic as like the hearing test that they give like all children, which is like different tones in each ear, like soft, loud. You just when you hear it, like it's as it's as rudimentary as that, but it's also like a it can explain certain things, like why people are better at certain things.
Yeah, I suppose the testing method differentiates people's genetics because of. So I'll just explain the test. So the test enabled researchers to boil down the speed of which the subject was no longer able to see the flicking light, and instead they saw a solid, unmoving light. The results were surprising, and some people weren't able to see past a flicking light above 35 times a second, while others were able to see up to 60 times per second. So this test, this process of electrical signals through the optical nerve to the region of the brain responsible for the image formation, the visual cortex, and that whole process is called temporal resolution, or as the researchers called, can in quotations be a frame rate.
Yeah, now, this is what makes it like a direct relationship with gaming is like frame rate. Like we all know, like the faster the frame rate, the better, right? And if you're playing competitive games or a first-person shooter, you want a high frame rate. And this is basically saying that some people can perceive a higher frame rate or more so than others.
Yeah, that is exactly right. I think a lot of people they conflated this with, well, we can't see, we don't need it. There's that classic argument. It's like, we can't see anything above 60 FPS anyway.
So why would you need... Yeah, I think I even said that like back in the day, I was like, well, like, somebody mentioned like you can't see above a certain frame rate.
Yeah.
But that's not the point.
No.
Because I think we talked about a while ago that like the next step isn't resolution, it's basically refresh rate, but not because it's just based on how displays work, right? It's like it's not the fact that you can see 2,000 frames per second or whatever the case is, like an exponential, whatever, like 100, 200, even 300. When like I've seen a few tests like of like NVIDIA had once I think they had it at CES or no, Computex, or like where they have like a couple of monitors, whereas like one monitor is playing is a 60 hertz, right? And then next to that is a 144 hertz monitor. And then next to that is a 360 hertz monitor, right? And it's basically the same thing of like League of Legends, where it's just like panning across the map really fast.
Yeah.
So on a 60 hertz display, you just see like
Tearing.
You see like ghosting. You see like it's just objects are like, like they're not very clear. You switch across to the 144 hertz and you're like, oh, like I can actually see the object. Like as the cameras go moving fast, I can see that unit or whatever character, whatever it is. I can actually see it now. It's like it's a lot clearer. And then you go to the 360 hertz, and then you go, oh, it's even clearer now, because it's not necessarily that you can see that many more frames. It's just like that just results in smoother movement on the display. So
you can feel it.
Like
the difference isn't the sight is like, well, it's both. It's the sight, and it's also I can feel the difference.
You can see that. You can see like motion. It's just clarity. It's just you can just see it. Like it's not necessarily that you notice that it's running fast. It's just things you can just see objects a lot clearer.
Well, I can even see it, and this might be my genetic disposition, but I can see it in my mouse. Like I can differentiate on Windows when a display is running at 60 hertz, when it's running at 144 hertz, and it's running at 240 hertz. And
that comes down to this same thing, right? It comes down to like motion clarity and like its movement and stuff like that.
Yeah, and I can even feel it in the mouse. Like when it's going like that, I'm like, something's off here. And then I'm like, I bet you that's 60. And then I go to like the settings and it's 60
I've
hertz.
done that as well, yeah. It's like, hold on, like you swap a monitor out or whatever, and then you come back, and then you're like using it for like 5 minutes. You go like, why is this like?
What's
it's like
off
everything
here?
is just like slightly off, right?
Yeah,
and then
what's off here?
You go, oh, it's defaulted back to 60, and you put it back to 144, and you're like,
ooh, there it is. Okay, so the team behind the study drew a comparison between their results and the results of other studies in the animal kingdom, and found that some species of animal can see fast-moving objects better than others, such as prey animals. That might be the case here with humans. The authors of the study stated that these individual differences in perception speed, quote, might become apparent in high-speed situations where one might need to locate or track fast-moving objects, such as a ball in sports, or in situations where visual sensors change rapidly, such as in competitive gaming. And here is another quote. This suggests that some people may have an advantage over others before they have even picked up a racket. That's a racket? Yeah. This suggests that some people may have an advantage over others before they have even picked up a racket and hit a tennis ball, or grabbed a controller and jumped into some fantasy world online. So there could be, very well could be, genetic disposition that enables some people to be better at gaming than others.
But then again, like if you've got like a better monitor than that person, then you'll have a leg up as well. I mean, there's obviously a skill and everything else, but it basically says that like, like it basically would mean that like, virtuoso tennis players or whatever, like
they exist.
They would have, it necessarily doesn't mean that they're like, genetically predisposed to be the best at tennis. Like there's a lot of training, there's other factors going on. But they've got that innate ability to be able to begin or to be able to hit that level, right? So like it's basically saying that it would basically say like the very best, like, Counter-Strike player is guaranteed to fall into this category, right?
Yeah,
because
it's more likely.
It's just that it's just more likely, like that there's a super high probability that they would be on that side of it, because it's just a natural advantage.
I think we'll wrap up on that one. We can do Apple's AI game changer for Siri at the start of next episode, because we're getting strapped for time here. Okay, all right. Thank you very much for listening, guys. If you're listening on the audio, please go head over to the YouTube so you can see our beautiful faces. Like, comment, and subscribe on this video. And thank you very much for listening and watching. We'll be back next week with an even more jam-packed week of news. Did you have anything to sign this week off with, Kosta?
No. For all the Samsung coverage, check out Twigtown, and everything else, check out the notes for links to stories.
Yep, that's it. All right. Thank you very much, guys. See ya.